How have the screenings been going?
Good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You were at all the public ones?
There's only two, so
yeah.
I was, yeah.
And the reactions?
Good.
Yeah.
I mean, people are telling me the kinds of things I like to hear. They discover things in the films, and if they have problems with it, they're the kind of problems I like. They're the problems I encourage. So.
How have you found the reviews?
Well, there's just been sort of mini reviews, and then there's been a couple of long articles, which were really good. I thought the long articles.
I really liked Adam's article and POV.
Right.
Did you guys want to? Were you targeting Locarno as the premiere?
Targeting?
Yeah, because it's a great festival, and it seems like one that's very much in step with what you're doing.
Yeah, the timing was right.
Yeah.
We just finished the film and they came to look at it in Switzerland, and of course it's a Swiss co-production.
But you have ties to Switzerland.
Yeah. So it just made sense on all fronts, so we went with it, yeah.
So I think we're just going to segue straight into the interview. We've probably been rolling.
Feels like we're in an interview, strangely.
So one thing I read in the POV article was that this was described as both the most personal and the most difficult of your films, and I was wondering if you could expand on both of those descriptors.
I'm not sure about personal, why it's more personal than anything else I've done. Probably because my mother's in it, so that would suggest, that suggests something more to do with myself. But I think all my films are personal, also because I shoot them, and they're really the world seen through me operating a camera. And even if I don't appear in them or if I don't speak in them, you're really seeing my sensibility, and that's a very personal thing. Also in the new film, there's putting my mother in it, and questioning time probably has something to do with an awareness of my own age, my own mortality. I think we all become more aware of that at a certain number. And I guess that could be read as personal as well. What was the other part of the question? Difficult, yeah. No, it's absolutely the most difficult. Because it evolved to be a film about time in some respects, and time is an impossible subject, because time is really just transformation, and everything we look at any given moment is an image of time. So you're at a point where wherever you point the camera, that's what your film's about. And in parallel, I mean, I guess the film does this too. It questions if time is just a concept. And if you were really going to make a film that tried to cover that subject properly, you'd have to make a series, and you'd have to have many different points of view and different kinds of articulations about ideas of time, and I didn't want to do that. So it also means you can't say too much, because if you say one thing, you have to say all the other things too. So perhaps also that's something that made it become more subjective or more personal, and more about perception and seeing through the idea of time. So it's about the perception of time as experienced using film.
And the DJ even comments that thinking about time is just a very difficult process in general too.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if it was difficult likewise to film it. And something that occurred to me is that one of the defining features of film, or I guess you could say now television, or any, we don't call them moving images, I guess, anymore, pixels, but is that they have duration, right, versus other art.
Yeah.
How did you approach filming time?
Well, I think, I've been working with film and it's amazing how much the word time comes up in conversation. It's just, in so many contexts you use that word. So I was going to say, I've been making films for a long time. And in the process of making films, I was aware that it was a kind of time machine, but it never kind of became as profound or dramatic as it has in this film, where it was like, oh yes, it really is, as Tarkovsky says, sculpting in time, and it really is a paradox of time, and it as a media, as a reflection of technology in our today's life, it takes us away from being in the present. I mean, it's really this grand paradox that technology has given us to look at the past and project into the future. I mean, if I shoot with a camera, I feel like I'm in the moment, and when I'm in that flow, it feels really good. It's one of my favorite experiences. It's almost like a high to be at one with the camera as things unfold, catching them. But as soon as it's finished, it's a thing that belongs to the past, and it's baggage, and it's this thing that I'm trying to use to put into an experience for you, the audience, in the future. And my whole relationship to the present has been completely, set askew through making film. So the simple answer to your question is, I just became much more aware of the paradoxes implied by using film.
And you've been described as someone who is, you said living in the present, but I think it was a French quote that was présent au monde, like, I guess in the world, in the moment. And it's a film where there is kind of the feeling of an impulsiveness, which has been a mandate in some of your other films, but there's also the opposite, which is there are some shots that seem very meticulously crafted and choreographed technically. And I'm wondering how that balance was maybe achieved.
Which ones would you be referring to the meticulously crafted ones?
Some of maybe the moving time-lapse photography seems like it requires, just from a technical standpoint, some kind of planning.
Right, yeah.
Even if what's depicted is chance, like whatever's happening.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the thing, I mean, with filmmaking on the whole, it's a difficult medium to improvise with, because it requires a lot of money, so you got to explain what you're doing in the first place, and then it requires harnessing technology, and I think you can harness technology to a level where you can be pretty spontaneous with it, especially with a camera, but then it bogs down again in editing, because you've got a lot of time to look at all your material and assemble something and review it, and if anything, you become over familiar with it, you lose the spontaneous connection to it. And it's something that I've been interested in and engaged with from the beginning, is how do you use this medium in a spontaneous fashion, or that you don't lose that kind of electricity of discovery along the way, which reveals so much, So I have many strategies in all ways, including time lapse, to still stay open to discovering things, And time lapse is exciting because what it really is, it's sort of like a time microscope, right? You set it up in your world, like as you understand the perception of time. Okay, this is our world, so I set up a time lapse, and it's going to see something that you can't see because it's seeing it at a different rate. And so in a way you are improvising, like you said, because you're just sort of allowing something to happen, and you don't know what it'll be, and certainly you don't know what the thing in front of the camera is going to be, especially if it's involving weather. And then when you get it back, it's like, when you see it shrunk into a short span of time, you're seeing gestures and movements and progressions, transformation, time that you don't see with your normal eyes. So it's kind of like a time microscope.